Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Tuesday, May 26th, or 22nd rather, May 22nd, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Your total daily dose of happy for the day, because this morning, as many of you noticed, we were actually off air, and it happened because here in our area, my internet provider went belly up for about an hour, and so we couldn't connect to anything. But that's all been, that's a bummer, but that's all right. It all works out in the end, and certainly it did in this case as well, because everything came back online, just not in time for us to do the morning podcast. So we're going to do the afternoon podcast, and we're going to make that the podcast for the day. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good to me.
So that's what we will do. So
hey,
things
what
are
if
off.
I said no?
Well, I don't know. I think I'd be in shock if you did. If you said no, I think I'd probably take your temperature. It's like, Wendy, are you feeling all right? What's going on here?
I don't know. I might say, let's just go for 2 hours and make up the difference.
Oh, I
no,
see.
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding.
Okay, I get it. I wondered where you were going with that. Now it makes more sense. So anyway, the book social media campaign is working out nicely. For those listeners who aren't sure what I'm talking about, you know about the book, I'm sure, by now, because we've been talking about it for quite a bit of time. But
the book we're talking about is titled Your Daily Dose of Happy, and this is the one that's been co-authored by a bunch of LOA coaches and practitioners, including yours truly's. I don't know. How do you say you and me's truly?
I don't know. I'm not from Brooklyn, so I don't know how.
Walt and I are participants. We're contributors to this book.
That's right. That's right. Along with 37 other people. So It's been quite a project, to say the least. And right now we're getting ready for the official launch, which starts this Friday. And this part we have announced here on the program a few times now. Between Friday and Monday, there will be a link available on the homepage of loatoday.net, picture of the cover of the book, and if you click it, you can get a free copy of the ebook as a Kindle ebook. So we've been promising that for quite some time. We are going to deliver on that promise, and we are leading up to the big launch on Friday. So it's a very exciting time. The social media campaign's off to a good start too, by the way. The social media campaign, the first little batch that we did as co-authors, produced a reach of about 4,700 people. So we're off to a good start. So,
and that's just through the one Facebook page, right?
Just through the LOA Today page, not counting what everybody else is doing and getting in terms of their responses. And some people are getting some really big responses from their various followings. So
cool.
When you add it all up, I don't know what the total reach is. I'm going to guess it's somewhere in the range of 15,000 to 20,000, but I don't really know for sure.
So when you say that we're going to have the link up for 4 days, where people can get a free copy of the ebook. That's not just for our subscribers. That's for anybody who sees us on social media anywhere.
Well, yeah, and actually anyone who shows up at the Amazon site. But we wanted to make sure that our listeners had first dibs on it.
Oh, absolutely.
So, that's why we've been touting it that way. But yeah, we're going to get this into as many hands as possible. And just for those who may have forgotten, the reason we're doing all this, well, there are a number of reasons, but the first impetus behind it is to help promote LOA Today's podcast and get more listeners. We've been talking about that for the longest time, asking everybody to subscribe and share and so forth. Well, this is a nice way to get the brand into a whole bunch of hands all at the same time and give them something good to read. So it's a good combination, a win-win.
Very cool combination. Mm-hmm.
Plus, we're also giving publicity to the authors, because most of the authors are life coaches. They're life coaches and therapists, LOA coaches. There's a couple of Reiki experts or practitioners. There are a number of different disciplines there, but most of the contributors are very skilled in the law of attraction. So not only are you getting some very entertaining stories, but you're getting some stories from people who really know what they're talking about. So
that's exciting. And I've read, as an author, I've had the privilege of having the advanced copy. Now, I haven't read all of it yet, but I've probably read about a third, and what I've seen is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know one of the first chapters I ever read, I was like, whoa, there's a cool idea, and I implemented it immediately.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
That's my hope for our listeners, is that as they read through this stuff, that ideas will percolate in their own thoughts about how to utilize it in ways they haven't considered.
Well, certainly when you read this book, because you're getting so many different people's perspectives, you're going to hear different ideas. It's not like, I mean, we have a number of good perspectives here on the podcast because there are 6 of us total who participate, from one podcast to the next. But you multiply that up to nearly 40 people, and the number of perspectives, of course, increases, by the same amount. And boy, those different perspectives can give you all kinds of different ideas. So I can't say I'm surprised, but I'm really pleased you got something that you were able to use. That's fantastic.
Yeah. That was even before you had the whole book put together. You had sent me a copy of one of the co-hosts chapter because you wanted to show me what the bio was going to look like because I wasn't quite sure how you wanted me to do it.
Oh, right. I remember that.
When I read the story, I went, brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. I'm excited.
So again, there's an example of the universe guiding my hand because I didn't necessarily send you that one because I thought there was something great for you in it, but the universe made sure you saw it. That's for sure.
There was.
There it is.
That was so awesome. Yeah.
Very cool stuff. So let's see. What do I have to report today? I mean, today has been a whirlwind because today's the payroll day for Louise's gardening business, and we have a larger staff than we've ever had before. And last week we billed more hours than we ever had before. So payroll this week is proving to be quite the task. Most of it is I have to do most of it manually, and that's why we're having some software written to kind of automate some of that process. But I'm getting through it, and I'm going to be done. I'm going to have to actually finish it after the podcast. But that's like a big portion of what I've been focusing on today. And I mention it because accounting and payroll are not my favorite things in life. I'm good at them. I've learned how to do them. I'm self-taught, but they're really not my favorite things. Anything that has to do with financial stuff historically for me has been, stress related. And yet today, despite the craziness with that, and I had to go do some collections from customers and so forth, all this stuff that was not normally in my favorite things to do list, I'm feeling good. I'm stress free. I'm awesome. Having a good day. So, I guess what I'm doing is I'm blowing my own horn saying, I did it. I've gotten to the point now where I can be working on stuff that's not my favorite stuff and I can feel good anyway. This is good.
So did you do anything purposeful, or is it just things are starting to settle into an autopilot kind of scenario?
I think it's more the second one. I've done the same thing I've been doing every day. I still do my mirror exercises. Louise and I still do our 3 good things and so forth. And I think I've just reached the point where I have focused enough on positive stuff in my life that it's starting to percolate in my mind, in my subconscious or whatever, and becoming my predominant way of being and of thinking. And now I'm getting to reap the rewards of it. Yeah, it is wonderful. It's great. It's great to be able to do stuff like that and not have it affect me in any way, really. I mean, it's not been difficult at all. It's been, you have to do the stuff. I mean, there's a lot, especially with anything accounting related. You know how that is. It's all very nitpicky, but I can do it, and I'm not doing it in a way that's frustrating me, which is the big part. So, yeah, good stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Yeah, I love it when you can compare past experiences to the current experiences and see such a huge positive difference.
Oh, boy.
That's when you go, ooh, things are starting to rock and roll. I have something to share, but before we do, was there anything else you wanted to wrap up on that topic, or did you have some other stuff? I didn't want to jump on you.
Well, just to kind of expand on what you just said, when I look back over the 9 or 10 years, it's about 9.5 years since I first became aware of the law of attraction, and look at where I was at mentally back then and where I am right now, the distance and the difference is like light years apart. I mean, it's just such a different mindset. Back then, I was in a really negative place. I was realizing, Louise had helped me to understand that I was being more negative than I realized. But I had a long way to go. And I remember the first few days, first few weeks, first few months of trying to do stuff and saying, how on earth am I ever going to make these shifts? They seem impossible. How am I ever going to get to that point where every day feels like a good day, no matter what happens during the day? And yet here I am 10 years later, and boom, I've made it.
And, in a way, you weren't necessarily going, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. But over time, you would hear things, and without even realizing sometimes, you just start to implement a new thought, something that had, like maybe
Sometimes.
you learned during a podcast or whatever. And I think that's a lot of times how I've grown. I surround myself with really good information. And when I like it, sometimes even without awareness, I'm thinking to myself, ooh, I want to do that. Yeah, I like that. I want some of that. And before I know it, those things are now a part of my life.
I know that I did that a lot of what I did. I would say most of it was a lot of deliberate focus and frustration because I couldn't focus, and then try again and kind of get it halfway and then try again and give up for a week because you get tired and then try again. And there was a lot of that stuff going on. But I think you're probably right. There was some stuff that happened that just kind of happened, and I probably didn't even notice it at the time. But looking back, yeah, I'd say there were probably times where just the predominant pattern was starting to shift, and so I got the benefit of it. I've seen that more in the last few months than in the earlier months, but yeah, I'd say it happened.
Cool. Yeah. Well, like when you think about today's experience with finances, which has not been your favorite thing, did you do anything specific to focus on having finances become something that you could do with more ease?
Oh, I probably did at some point. You're going to ask me when, and I don't remember when. I know probably on multiple occasions I put out there that I really want to make finances easier for me to digest and handle, and to make it so that it was
I'm wanting to think that what I was saying is the case for you and doing the accounting stuff today, where you kind of wanted it, you threw it out there, but you didn't spend a whole lot of time making it a project.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And so I think with all the other good things that you've been putting into practice, this just kind of fell in place. It was one of your things that you desired, is for the accounting piece to be easy, and flow.
Oh, yeah.
But it's nice because it's not like you have been talking about it every day for the last number of months saying, okay, I want this accounting thing to come to me with ease.
No, it was more like whenever the taxes would come around, it'd be, okay, this time around, can we please have it be easier? Or whenever I had to do the monthly settlements or whatever, oh, can we make this easier, please? But you're right, it wasn't an ongoing day-to-day project.
And I think the reason I wanted to point that out is because not every single part of our life, when we start to want to use law of attraction in a more deliberate fashion, is it something that we have to make into a project. Sometimes just leaning into a thought of, oh, I'd really prefer this, or wouldn't it be nice if, is really sufficient for law of attraction purposes. As a matter of fact, I've heard Abraham recently talk about the soft, gentle desire. When you have a soft, gentle desire and then forget about it, usually those are the ones where there's no attachment to it. There's no resistance in it. There's no fear, doubt, worry, or concern. And those are the things that just sort of happen. And it feels as though it's magical because we didn't do anything. And that's really the point. I don't believe we're intended to do a whole heck of a lot of something to make things happen.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Desire it and let go. Desire it and let go. Now, I will say that's not an easy task when there's something you've desired for years and years and years and years and years, and you spent tons of time going, why isn't it here? Why isn't it here? Why isn't it here?
Which is just holding you back, but still.
Yeah, but those are the desires that I put into a different category. Like my Project X, which is, a new career with new income streams. I've been wanting this for 20 plus years. So I had to do some real deliberate consideration of what I wanted and was I willing to deal with the resistance pockets as they showed up. And my answer was yes, because I'm not willing to live anymore without everything that I want. I felt that this year, 2018, was the year that not necessarily everything would manifest for me, but that I would begin to see manifestations of all the things that I've ever desired starting to come in, at least in an embryo stage, because I knew I was ready. So,
I think there's a couple of things that have gone on here. One is I know I have this habit. Well, I call it a habit. I don't know what else to call it. A pattern of often having stuff happen. The easy kind of stuff happening, kind of slipping stuff in there and not noticing it. I don't notice it perhaps sometimes for months at a time. Sometimes I have somebody point out to me, by the way, did you notice that happened? Oh yeah, hadn't noticed that. You're right. So my tendency is to think, oh well, only the stuff that I really worked on is where it actually happened because I just didn't notice the rest of it. Did it actually happen? Well, yeah, I just didn't notice. Mm-hmm. So that's one part of it. The other part is that as time goes by and as we learn more and more of how this stuff works, I realize the role that ingrained habits plays. And my habits regarding negativity in general, and particularly negative, stressful type reactions to certain things like finances in particular, were so deeply ingrained that there was a lot of momentum going in those directions. And so it took a while to turn them around. And while they were turning around, most of the time, I didn't notice they were turning around. It didn't feel like it. Sure, it was actually turning around, but I felt the same, and it was just as frustrating as it used to be. So those are the two factors that I think go on. And I think you're right. I think there is the easy thing that is supposed to happen and actually does happen. And I think it happens a lot more often than many times we realize.
Well, and how what's going on, how what your vibration is based on what results are you experiencing. Mm-hmm. And, so I started out this year with Project X, which was about finances. Mm-hmm. Then I started to move into Project B for body, which has obviously been about changing my body.
Right.
And then the third one that I hadn't really started focusing on, at least not on the show, is Project Relationship. Uh-huh. And I would really like to have a romantic relationship. And I'm not a dater. I've never been into lots of dates. I'm really kind of a one-man woman. Now, mm-hmm. if I date somebody for a while and we find out it doesn't work, well, that's okay. Yeah. But I'm kind of into monogamy, right up front. I don't. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I'm a multitasker, but not when it comes to relationships.
Okay, well, that's fine.
And I've noticed over the last couple months, I would have, sometimes I'd have dreams about meeting someone, and it's like it felt good, and I've kind of asked myself some questions like, well, am I really focusing enough on this? And I wasn't getting the sense that I needed to. And so I just kind of let it be. Well, then, gosh, I can't remember the specific, but something changed for me maybe 3 weeks ago. And it had to do with my finances. But it was also a shift that felt very global, like it affected the whole of my life.
Okay.
And it had to do with how I felt about me, attracting, affluent clients, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been on eHarmony for years, but I hadn't been a paying member, which means you can't see individuals' pictures. They can see mine if they're a paying member, but I can't see theirs. But okay. Honestly, I just hadn't had anybody, even if they can see my picture, nobody was biting for a long, long, long time. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't concerned about it because I'm like, it is what it is. And it's just like when I didn't have any clients, I wasn't focused on clients, so I wasn't getting clients. Then I focus on clients and boom, clients show up. So something came in the email from eHarmony, and it was like this really rock bottom, price. Like for $11, I could have eHarmony. I would have the membership back for 3 months. And I'm like, you know what? For $11, I'm going to test the waters and just see where I'm at. Okay. Let's just see what happens. And gosh, I think it was last Thursday, I got a quote smile from one gentleman. And when I looked at him, I was like, holy cow. He's like exactly made to order what I've asked the universe for.
Ooh.
Right height, right age, salt and pepper hair. I mean, loved his smile, loved his eyes, the things that are important to me. It's like, boom. And even there were some things that he wrote in his profile that I went, wow, that kind of really matches my profile. I'm like, that's pretty interesting.
That's nice.
So I didn't want to get all attached to it, but I went, all right, I'll throw a smile back and we'll just see what happens. So he and I haven't like talked, but we've sent questions to each other. And then I was just focusing on, wow, what's going on? This is kind of fun. So for about 4 days, I was just focusing on what this guy looks like. And I wasn't really being attached to him specifically. I was kind of basking in, this is so cool, because what I was looking for, even when it comes to appearance, is what the law of attraction brought to me. And so that's really what I focused on for the last 4 days. And I thought, this is just so very cool.
You were enjoying. Well, that's what you were doing. You were having fun
totally
with it.
Enjoying without the attachment.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Without the, oh my God, I wonder if we're going to be together. I mean, just none of that stuff.
Which is probably a good thing to avoid anyway, under any circumstance, but especially in this case. Yeah, that's great.
Although I will tell you, I did have a tendency around day 2 when I went, hey, has he gotten back to me yet? What's up? I would really like to get to know him. Why is he not there? And then it's like immediately I felt, ooh, I'm going down the wrong road. And so I went back to, okay, just let go. It is what it is. I was reminded how when I met my husband, I met him online. I saw his picture. And because I have a belief that due to the differences in men and women and our hormones and how things are, I believe men need to chase women for the relationship to be appropriately balanced. And so even though I saw this guy's picture online, my girlfriend said to me, what, are you going to email him? And I said, no, and this is years ago. I didn't even know law of attraction, but I did believe in God helping answer my desires. And so I just said, no, I'm just going to let it go. And about 7 days later, he responded and we connected, and he's the one I married. So I was kind of reminded of that the other day when I started getting a little clingy and went, just let go. Because I let go of the one that I ended up marrying, and he came to me. So, hey, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Well, in the meantime, last night, remember yesterday I talked about getting a new cell phone.
Yep.
And didn't know if I had lost my data or not.
I remember, yeah. I presume you got it all back.
Well, I have a backup program. Didn't even know I had it, put it on the phone. But I started the process. Well, it takes hours and hours and hours. So I could tell stuff was coming through. I got all my photos back. That was really amazing to me.
That's good.
And so what I really wanted was my contacts. And so what's so funny is there were like 1,600 files that had to get downloaded to my phone. And when we were down to the last 2, my contacts were in the last 2. So I did get my contacts. So I think the only thing I lost were like my text message threads. And it's like, I can live without those. That's really fine.
Yeah, that's not going to end your day.
No, but what was interesting is last night I woke up around 4 a.m. and I just couldn't go back to sleep. And so I thought, all right, well, I guess I'll just get on my new cell phone and start
play
downloading
with a toy.
New apps.
Absolutely. You got to play with a new
I'll
toy.
Play with the toy. So get this. While I was playing with my phone, I get a notification. Now, I don't know if you've been through this, but to me, every time I've gotten a new device, I have to go through the process of figuring out which notifications are going to make noise, which ones aren't, which ones do I want to turn off because I don't want them to wake me in the middle of the night. So one of them had actually, I think the reason I woke up at 4 is because one of the notifications went off. And so when I decided to get up and look, it was another guy on eHarmony.
Oh.
And I went, okay, so I went for like over a year and not one ping, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I get 2, like within 4 days.
And within deciding to open things up a little bit too. That's the real key difference.
Well, I wasn't there yet, but yes, you're onto the right track. And so I looked at it, and he really wasn't my speed, but I was really pleasantly receiving of what he said about me and about my picture, etc. And so anyway, I'm up for a good couple hours, and I'm, watching the downloading of, all my data come to my phone and blah, blah, blah. And then another notification sound goes off. It's another guy. We're talking number 3 on eHarmony, 2 of which come together within a 2-hour period. And I'm just laughing to myself. And again, I looked at his and I'm like, yeah, he's really not for me either. And I went, okay, universe, what am I getting from this? And it just came really clear. My man pipeline is now open. Where it wasn't before. I had all sorts of issues and things that resistances and whatnot, but it's like my pipeline's wide open now.
Right.
And I was like, I love that. And it didn't have to do with, am I going to, connect with them or not? But the fact that I went over a year without getting anything, and now I get 3 within 5 days, 2 of which came in within 2 hours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's not a coincidence.
No.
That says I have shifted my vibration.
Or to put it another way, all coincidences aren't just coincidences.
No, not in this case. And so I loved, because I asked for inner guidance, and the guidance was, your pipeline's open. You're open to romantic relationships now. And so they're walking through the door, and I went, well, hot diggity, isn't that cool?
Very nice. Yeah, feels good, huh?
Yeah, and that's one that, it's of my big 3 that I wanted to work on this year.
Right.
And I honestly thought that one would be a big deal and like really hard pressed. But what I'm kind of sensing is, of my 3, finances, relationship, and body, the first one I picked was the finances. And what I'm sensing is whatever shifts and changes I'm making to produce that one is actually shifting everything else. So when I become more open to who I am and what I want to connect with on the money side, that also is how I want to connect on the body side and on the relationship side. So it's like the changes I make in one area are actually mapping over to the other 2.
Certainly from a general point of view, that makes sense, because any resistances that you remove is going to get you into a happier place. So that's going to help you in all areas of your life, I would think.
Yes. So I'm enjoying the fact that right now, how the pipeline opened for me to be open to relationships right now, it felt as though it was pretty effortless. I didn't do anything. I enjoyed the imaginations that came to me. I enjoyed the dreams that came to me. I got the hit to become a member of, or a paying member again.
Right.
But that doesn't really change anything from a logistics perspective. That just means I can see their pictures. But they've always been able to see my picture if they were paying members. So it's kind of like I didn't change anything within eHarmony.
Right.
But I changed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my point of attraction is now different.
Yes.
And so that's what's like really, really exciting.
That is, yeah. And I like how easy it was for you to make that shift. You kind of like, you didn't even make it a project. You just kind of drifted into it.
Yeah. I'm right on the tip of it. The thing that shifted a while back, it's like I can feel it, but I can't put my hands on what it is. But it did have to do with relationships, but I was working on something having to do with finances, but there was a relationship piece that was attached to it. And so when I cleaned up the piece in the finances, it cleaned up the relationship piece simultaneously. So, I remember that's when and it doesn't matter, but that's when I said, hey, let's just play an experiment with eHarmony. And actually, it wasn't just I decided it. I really do believe that I received the idea to do that, because I'm not one to just throw money at things needlessly, but it felt like a good investment in an experiment.
Okay.
And then when I got the big awareness over the weekend of like income stream number 2 is solidly planted in my vibrational reality and it's ready to pop. That has to do with working in a premium market, more of an affluent clientele. Not that I'm going to like give up my current coaching practice, but it's another piece. And so today in my inbox came something that was all about the luxury market. I've been following this guy from Millionaire Listing, Los Angeles. His name is Josh Flagg. And he's somebody I've been following on TV for years. Well, he just created a program where he's teaching realtors how they can break into the luxury market. And I don't even remember how I got connected with it, but I went, oh yeah, I want his free ebook because I just had a sense that whatever he's going to teach about real estate can map over to what I'm doing.
Oh, sure. In some way, I would think.
Yeah. And so I've been gleaning a lot of insight from what he's been sharing. And today he shared a program and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm buying this one. It's very inexpensive, and he even said, and even if you're not into real estate, these principles will still apply, which I kind of already had the internal knowing that would be the case. But it felt like the appropriate timing, like that's where my focus is right now. And so it's like, how cool that I've been on his email list for a long time, but this new awareness came to me on Sunday, and here it is only Tuesday, and I get this in my inbox, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. Let's go.
Timing is everything, and that phrase, that cliche, takes on an entirely new meaning when you apply it from a law of attraction perspective. It's just amazing how timing plays out in ways that are unpredictable. I mean, certainly those of us going through whatever experience it is, the timing of how stuff works out, we couldn't possibly have predicted, but the universe seems to be able to time things very nicely. And it truly turns out that timing is everything. So once you get a shift that goes on in your own thought process and your own perspective, then the universe just slides right in with the next few steps. Yeah. It's like, wow.
And like one of his emails that I read the other day ended with, if you like these emails, just reply to me and let me know so that, I'll know that it's worth my time to keep writing them. Mm-hmm. And I thought, ooh, people say that all the time. And I'm like, nah, delete. And this one I'm like, ooh, I want to respond to him. So I took a few moments to let him know how much I really appreciate the insights that he writes about and the wisdom that he shares and how much I get from it. And then I just had one, like 2 sentences letting him know that, I'm not even a real estate agent. I'm a life coach. And that particular article was all about how not to negotiate down. Like when somebody says, well, will you take lesser commission or a lesser price? And so anyway, I won't go into all the detail, but I really learned a lot from what he shared. And I said, ironically, the time that it has taken me to learn my skill has been far less than the time that it's taken me to feel comfortable charging what I charge. So that's why I really appreciated his article. Mm-hmm. And I said, now I'm at a place that I'm ready to move into a more affluent clientele. And as I finished writing this up, again, I thanked him for his email and I sent it off and I went, wow, I just energetically connected with somebody who makes gazillions of dollars, is in the market that, he makes the kind of money I want to make.
Right.
And he hobnobs with the kind of people that could probably use my services.
Yeah.
And whether he actually would connect with me and help find me a client or not, it's kind of like that part didn't matter because I felt like by sending the email, it did that anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so, because even though it wasn't a direct outreach for that purpose, it was still an outreach, and it was an energetic outreach as well as sending an actual email.
It was an energetic outreach, yeah. And I went, wow, look at that. I'm networking energetically with the kinds of people that I want to do business with. I was like, oh. And that came within 1 day after getting the sense that my new income stream number 2 is now a vibrational reality. Well, isn't that cool?
The theme that is really cool is in these various segments of stories that you're telling, how quickly things happen. Because so often we complain, well, it's taking forever for X to show up. Why isn't X showing up? Well, stuff's showing up all the time when we're open to it.
And if we don't recognize it, then we don't think things are happening.
That's the other piece of the puzzle. Yeah, exactly. You have to notice that it's there.
But I do have my eyes and ears open and my antenna is up, and I'm very aware of these things that pop in, and I call them manifestations. being able to write to Josh, that was a manifestation. Having his new program show up in my inbox, that's a manifestation.
That's good. That's a good thing to do, because when you start looking at it that way, when you start expressing it that way, then I think what you're really doing is you're attenuating yourself. You're tuning in to recognizing the little things that happen as they happen, and in that way, you start to see the bigger picture as it emerges.
Yes, and to add to this, I don't know that I've actually even articulated this before, but this is a thought that comes to me. Is my younger sister has been over at my house a lot more recently, and she said, "Oh, it doesn't at all surprise me, Wendy, that you want to work with affluent people." And I said, "Why is that?" She said, "Because you love to be pampered." And I went, "Huh?" And she goes, "Oh yeah," and it was funny. She was making dinner one night at my house, and she's like, "Hello, Queen, it is time to eat dinner," and she was being really silly, and she calls me the Queen now, and I'm laughing. And I'm like, what is it about me that you feel like all my life I've liked pampering? Now, her interpretation of being pampered is slightly different than mine. Mm-hmm. But I was really curious to hear what her insights were. What has she observed that I'm not thinking about?
Sure.
And she said, well, all the furniture you have in the den, she said, you had that all custom done. You didn't just buy it off the showroom floor. I mean, I went to Lazy Boy and picked it out, but she said you picked out all of the fabrics, and which trim goes on which pillow. And she said, that to me is pampery. And I went, okay. And then she just started naming other things. She goes, oh, and like your kitchen table. You couldn't have just a normal kitchen table. You had to have something that was a little bit more exotic. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. And she just started pointing out things just from a decor perspective in my house. And I went, okay, well, I guess I always thought of it in terms of I like nice things, like the furniture down in my living room. Oh my God, everybody at my job knew about it because I was saving money for a year and a half to buy it. And it's purple, and I'm like, I can't wait to get my purple furniture. And everyone's like, we all want to see pictures of your purple furniture. But, I do have very particular tastes, but she's just started to point out the pampering aspect. And that word just sort of worked for me. And I've kind of realized in the last couple of days, I'm like, well, I am coming into a place that I enjoy being pampered. I remember last year, for the first time, I took an Uber. And I went, oh, my God, this is luxury. I mean, when I used to have to go on a business trip, I would drive from my house to a parking place, and then the parking place I'd get on a little tram, and the tram would take me into the airport. And that whole thing just always was such a hassle, and it took so much time. And I went, I'm just going to try Uber and see what happens. Oh my God, the luxury of having someone come to my door and help me out with my luggage, and then drive me to the airport, right to, where I needed to go in to get my ticket, was this was pure luxury. I wasn't having to worry about, am I going to make it in time? It's like all the concerns I used to have when I would drive myself were gone.
Nice.
And I went, I love this. So, of course, I took an Uber back, and I went, love this. I didn't have to sit down in the dank, smoke-filled underground part of the airport where I have to wait for the shuttle to come and get me to take me to the place where my car is parked.
Right.
And instead, Uber was right there. I stayed inside the airport where it was air-conditioned. And I remember thinking, oh, I think I really could get into this idea of having a driver. And I went, oh, my gosh, where's that idea coming from? I don't know, but I really like it. Well, then my sister and I went out of town for my niece's graduation, and she drove, and I went, oh, this is fun, because I didn't want to drive. I don't like to drive that drive. Okay. But she's like, oh, I don't mind at all. I'm like, cool. I like having a driver. Totally works for me.
You're definitely getting into that mind space. That's a good thing.
Well, yeah. And what came to me literally while we were on this call right now, right before I started talking about it, the thought that just occurred to me is because I'm so connecting with the idea of my sister calling me queen, which is a sense of royalty. I've been watching a little bit about the royal wedding. There's just a sense of elegance and grandeur. Mm-hmm. And then my sister talking about how I always like finer things, and me loving the idea of having a driver. And between my sister and a friend of mine, they've been cooking meals for me, and I've always wanted a chef. And I'm like, this all is so working for me. But here's the cool part. I have now shifted my energy into a space that is a match, or more of a match than it was before, to people of affluence who have more money.
Oh, absolutely.
That is just a natural thing because once upon a time, I remember thinking, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. I have coaching skills, but frankly, I need a lot of coaching myself. And one day, I've had this idea for many years, one day I'd like to work with people who are either celebrities or they're millionaires or people of affluence. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Back in that day, there's no way on earth somebody would want to pay me any huge sum of money for my services, because I was vibrationally I could only match people who vibrated to what I was focused on, which at the time it was debt.
Yeah, which doesn't work too well now.
Debt and poverty, and so back in those days, I didn't even know if I felt comfortable charging $50 an hour for my services.
Yep.
Let alone what I charge today, let alone what I'm going to charge, a different kind of clientele.
Right.
So I can just see how things are moving in a very subtle yet very profound way, so that my energy is shifting, so I'm becoming a match to my future clients.
By the way, Louise would be very empathetic and excited about it for you, because she loves anything where she calls it being a princess. She likes to be a princess. In fact, I'll even tell you a cool little story. She, over the last 6 months to a year, something like that, has gotten very big into doing genealogy, trying to fill in some of the gaps in the family tree and so forth. And she got really, really excited because she discovered that she has a lineage that goes back to the kings of France, the ancient kings of France. So she says, well, no wonder I feel like a princess. So that's kind of funny.
That's so funny. That's funny. And I do not, what I'm going to say is not at all to one-up her, but princess is my little sister.
Okay.
She's always said, this is how she articulates it, I'm the little princess. Uh-huh. So that's her title.
Okay.
And princess doesn't work for me. Queen has always worked for me.
Aha. So you have higher aspirations is what you're saying.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying I'm not trying to upsell or usurp Louise, but princess is not a word that works. Queen and goddess have always been my words. Now, you're laughing at goddess, but I have one coworker who's been calling me goddess for years. So eventually I took that on and went, I can live in that.
All I ask is don't ask me to bow down to you. Beyond that, it's fine.
Oh, never. Never. I have zero expectations of people treating me any different, but I like how it feels to think of myself as a queen or a goddess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It definitely works for me.
I like the fact that you set your bar really high. I think that's a good thing to do. Especially since you believe it.
To have this conversation among some people, some people could turn their nose up at me and go, oh, wow, she really thinks she's that and then some. And you know what? I believe we all deserve to feel that way.
Yeah.
This is not an isolated thing like I'm above anybody. I believe we are all incredibly worthy and just deserved of so many wonderful things. And the difference between when I didn't feel like I deserved much of anything to where I am now is I have been incrementally shifting my belief system. And I really have come to understand, I grew up believing, that I had to prove my worthiness. And I had to have people love me in order to feel that I was lovable. And I learned that was a backwards game. Because first of all, we're all worthy. The sheer fact that we've chosen to come into physical, beingness, we are worthy, or we wouldn't be here. We are worthy. And yet so many of us spend our lives, and I certainly did. I spent years trying to prove my worthiness to myself. And I needed someone outside of me to think of me as worthy, for me to take the permission that it was okay to feel worthy. And it's like, that's one of the things that no longer is part of my life. I'm worthy, period, end of report. There's no proving it. There's no trying to validate it. There's no, I have to do certain works in order to attain that. It was a given upon birth, upon pre-birth, that we're all worthy. But not everybody accepts that.
Well, I agree with you. In fact, I would say if you look at the typical character of the person that people don't like, who feels so full of themselves and who are so looking down their nose at you and all that kind of thing. When you actually look at those people, really, they don't think they deserve a whole lot. That's why they're constantly trying to reinforce, I deserve this, I deserve this, I deserve this. Because deep down, they don't really deserve it, or they don't really believe that they deserve it, which is kind of ironic when you think about it. But
I know that's why I say some of these things with a little bit of trepidation, because in the earlier part of my life, I said things like this because I was looking for somebody's validation.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did come across arrogant, but it wasn't arrogance that wasn't deserved. It was just, I really was as good as I said I was. I just was hoping somebody would validate it and say it out loud. And I remember over one particular thing, I remember saying to my mother, I was a young adult, why she didn't make a bigger deal over something that was such a big deal to all of us. And she said, well, because I didn't want you to get a big head.
Yeah.
And I said, but do you not realize that I was dying inside emotionally for somebody to validate it? Because even though I said the words, I was really kind of handing the words to people, my family, to say, please say it back to me, please, 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 because I didn't feel it at all.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing.
She's like, I had no idea that's how you felt. And I'm like, I was so disappointed that I had finally achieved this thing that was so important to the whole family. And I got it was like one moment of, oh, good job. And they moved on. I'm like, really? I spent most of my life working toward this, and that's all I get?
Yeah.
And she's like, didn't want you to get a big head. I'm like, oh, well, son of a gun.
It's one of those things that is hard sometimes to deal with, because we're constantly, when we feel that way, we're constantly looking for that affirmation, like you were saying. We're constantly looking for that recognition. And yet the hard thing to learn there is the best place to look for the affirmation is within instead of outside. And yet we continue to look outside. And then we get into the trap of looking outside. And then we suffer the consequences of being in the trap of looking outside, constantly looking for somebody else to give us that bit of juice, that bit of, right. I see you, I recognize you, I recognize what you're accomplishing. That's a great thing. It's an interesting paradox that goes on there.
And because I've experienced that of so not feeling worthy, so not feeling that I was being acknowledged, that I'd done anything of merit, or that I was anything of merit, I really do see it very clearly within others. When I hear other people kind of begging for that level of acknowledgement, if I'm in a place to do so, I will give them the acknowledgement. Not to say, hey, my acknowledgement is what you're needing, but I'll give it in a way that I'll give it to them so they feel better, but then I want to teach them that really it comes from within.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I do it with that intent. But, I know that there was times in my life where I wasn't quite as aware as I am now. and I would see somebody in my family or a coworker or somebody that was close to me that truly was constantly begging for that kind of affirmation. And because they just were so irritating, it was so easy to withhold it from them. Kind of like, if you stop being irritating, then I'll give you a bone. But in the meantime, forget it.
Yep.
You know, but then I realized, and they're hurting even more.
Oh, sure.
You know, and so that's when I recognized, oh, wait, I'm expecting them to change for me to show them kindness. And if I really want to be kind, maybe it's more appropriate that I just be kind. But I have to line up with it internally first.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know?
By the way, the mirror exercises that I've been doing have been great for giving myself that kind of affirmation, that kind of recognition, because that's kind of what I do every day. I mean, I tell myself how much I love and appreciate myself, and I'll even focus on things like, wow, you got the book done. And this is what I was doing on Sunday and Monday. You got the book done. That is fantastic. That's an amazing thing. So here I am looking at myself in the mirror and saying that to myself, and I'm getting the strokes for having put this project together. You know, what better way to do it, really? Because now I'm not looking outside. Now I'm looking inside, and I'm actually getting it verbally, which is kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. I'm still just enamored at how productive your mirror work has been, and just the positive results you've gotten from it.
I am too. I didn't really expect it to do all this. It's done a lot more than I really thought I would get out of it. I was just hoping to eliminate the negative self-talk, and if I could do that, it would be a victory. And when that constant voice shut up, that was a really nice thing. It was a real relief. But to get this added stuff that's coming out of it, the added benefits of basically demonstrating on a daily basis that I care about myself, that I love myself, that has produced a lot of self-confidence that I really wanted. I mean, I had learned how to fake it sort of over the years. I'd learned how to, act as if it was there, but now to really feel it, that's a really nice thing. It's an ease place. It's a place of ease.
And really, you said the magic word, to feel it.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you feel it, now you're sending that vibration into the universe, and that's what law of attraction now will match you up with, that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know, because I know you, just based on other conversations we had, when you were doing the negative self-talk, you were also feeling the effects of the negative self-talk.
Well, that's why I wanted to get rid of it, because I knew I was feeling it. Yeah.
Because that broadcast kept bringing you more of that.
Very well, I might add.
Well, we're all brilliant creators. We're all creating 24/7. It's just, what's the quality of the creation that we really want to bring into our life? That's really what the whole discussion's about. That's what our radio show is about. That's what being a deliberate creator of law of attraction is all about. We want to choose the quality of the creations that come into our life instead of just whatever shows up, shows up.
I just thought of something. Usually, whenever we have these conversations or any kind of introduction that we're doing to the show, and we're working on one of the books, and this is true for all the co-hosts, like 95% of the time, the stuff that we talk about ends up tying in directly to the book. And we haven't actually done this chapter yet. We've tried a few shows now. This is like the second or third show where we tried to do this subsection. We still haven't gotten to it. We got like 6 minutes left in the podcast, so I don't think we're going to get to it today. But I'm looking at the title and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if the title has something to do with why we don't actually get to it. Because the title says, when I'm tolerating others, I'm not allowing. And the thought that goes to my mind as soon as I read that is, I wonder if I'm just tolerating that section. I wonder if it's just, okay, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. So it's not just...
now you got me really curious, and I'm like, I really want to read it now.
You want to read it now?
Yeah, it's only like 4 paragraphs. Let's read it.
All right,
and so we can move past it.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we can move past it, right? So... All right, so it says, and so this essay has been prepared that you might understand that there is not another who is or offers any threat to you, for you are the controller of your own experience. in italics, the art of allowing, which says, I am that which I am, and I am willing to allow all others to be that which they are, is the law that will lead you to total freedom. Freedom from any experience that you do not want, and freedom from any negative response to any experience that you do not approve of. When we say it is good to be an allower, many of you misunderstand what we mean by that, for you think that allowing means that you will tolerate. You will be that which you are, which by your standards is that which is appropriate, and you will let everyone else be that which they want to be, even if you do not like it. You will feel negative about it. You will feel sorry for them. You may even feel fearful for yourself, but nevertheless, you will let them be, but in a tolerant fashion. When you are tolerating, you are not allowing. They are two different things. One who tolerates is feeling negative emotion. One who is an allower does not feel negative emotion, and that is a very great difference. For it is the absence of negative emotion that is freedom, you see. You cannot experience freedom when you have negative emotion. Now, tolerance may seem to be an advantage for others because you are not hindering them from what they want to do. But tolerance is not an advantage to you because while you are being tolerant, you are still feeling negative emotion, and therefore you are still negatively attracting. Once you become an allower, you will no longer attract into your experience those unwanted things, and you'll experience absolute freedom and joy. So there it is.
I loved that section. I loved it because to me it was all about freedom.
Yeah.
You know, it says you cannot experience freedom when you have negative emotion. And oh my God, that is so true.
It's also very true that tolerance is a negative emotion. It's not one we normally think of as being a negative emotion, but it really is because there's always that annoyance factor, you know? Okay, I'm tolerating that other person, but I'm just so annoyed by this. I'm just like, I can't wait till it's done. And I think if we were to reframe it,
tolerance is really nothing more than shoving down your negative feelings and just not communicating them.
Yeah, swallowing it and making it go away by swallowing it.
Right. It's kind of like political correctness.
Yeah.
Because political correctness, I think it's a crock. I am absolutely willing at any given moment to be politically incorrect, but I do it with love. And I can do that. I mean, you might not believe it, but I can do that.
I usually do it with humor, but it's basically, it's a good idea to kind of soften it in some way.
I just don't believe in the rules that political correctness require, because what it says is that people are going to get their feelings hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't focus on people getting their feelings hurt.
No.
Or it says, some people are just very biased. They like this and they don't like that. Well, I'm okay if people don't like this, and I'm okay if people do. And it's not because I'm tolerating it. I really am allowing, because that's what allowing it really is. I'm okay with other people being, doing, and having what they choose to be, do, and have, and that has nothing to do with me. And I don't judge them for what they be, do, and have, whether it's good or bad. I don't judge them for it. Their stuff is their stuff. And like I've been saying, I keep being guided, to remind myself certain things are none of my business. Stay in my own lane. And, when I'm staying in my own lane, I'm not playing the tolerate game. I'm playing the allowing game. I stay in my lane joyfully, knowing my inner being is always there with me, guiding me, sharing love with me. And what other people are doing in their lane is really none of my business.
Well, right now, the only thing I'm in the mood to tolerate is the fact that we're out of time, and so we'll have to wait again until tomorrow. But I'm willing to tolerate that because we get to do it again tomorrow. So I'm not tolerating for very long.
Wendy, but you know what? We got past any resistance you had on that little section. We've now read it.
That's right. It's done.
And we move on.
And with that happy note, we'll say we hope you enjoy the show and that you'll join us again here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.